What's up, people? Welcome back to the Ecom Unlimited podcast. It's your boy Kaj. For today's episode, we're actually going to be sharing an interview that I did with our friend Tom over at FastTrackFBA on his podcast. Tom interviewed me about brand direct relationships through wholesale on Amazon, and we pretty much go A to Z about that whole process. So this episode is going to be extremely valuable for you guys. Take notes, enjoy. E-commerce is the greatest business opportunity of our generation.
Okay, so everyone is talking about brand direct, working with brands directly to resell on the Amazon marketplace. And today I'm super excited because I have Cajua with us, who has been in the game for a long period of time, and he's going to explain everything all about what you need to know. Cajua, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. If anyone doesn't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself, your business, and obviously we'll jump into the questions, but I'd love to know more about you.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks for the invite. So quick background, I've been selling on Amazon since 2017 with my business partner, Josh. I always mention him because we both always say that if we were not in business together, there's no way we'd still be doing this. So much of my success is attributed to him and still is. So we started in 2017 actually doing private label. We saw someone's course on YouTube, I think paid a few $100 for it. It was a good course, A to Z, found a supplier, all that stuff, designed a product. We launched 2 products. One did not go well. And then the second product we launched actually went very well. But then this thing called COVID happened. The world got flipped upside down. That product was no longer profitable. And we were in a point where we were like, okay, do we continue with private label or do we switch our business model? And we decided to switch to arbitrage. So we did some retail arbitrage and then started doing online arbitrage, found a really good groove with online arbitrage and scaled that up to about $500,000 in revenue. And I want to say the year right now is around 21, 22. And then we started adding in like normal wholesale. So just buying and flipping from distributors or wholesalers. And then 2023 was our first 7-figure year in revenue. And then 2024, we pretty much stopped doing online arbitrage entirely, focusing on some wholesale arbitrage, some wholesale brand direct, locked in a couple of brand direct exclusives. And then now 2025, we're just focusing on brand direct exclusively. Well, I guess that's not technically true. We have one distributor that we still buy from. We know their supply chain is legit and their inventory is good, but I haven't done distributor outreach in probably over a year. All my outreach is just focused on brands, and most of my time is taken up with communicating with brand partners, optimizing listings, running PPC advertising, just everything related to the brand side of things.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so a lot of background, a lot of experience. You use some words there such as online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale arbitrage, wholesale direct, distributor direct. Like, I won't repeat them because I can't remember all of them.
Sure.
But can you just repeat them and tell us what you mean by those terms? Let's define terms.
Yep. And that was something I wanted. I'm glad you asked that because I think there's some confusion there. So the private label, I think most people know what that is. That's when you design your own product, you launch it. Essentially, you have your own product, your own brand. Retail arbitrage is when you're going into physical stores, buying the products low, selling them high on Amazon. Online arbitrage, same thing, except instead of going into stores, you're buying online. So arbitrage is just a fancy word that means you're just finding discrepancies in marketplaces, right? So there's a mini marketplace in the store where it's selling for $10, and then there's a different marketplace, which is Amazon, where it's selling for $25, and you're just moving it from one marketplace to another and making a profit. Wholesale arbitrage is the same thing. It's just instead of one mini market being a store, it's a distributor or a wholesaler, and then you're moving it from there to Amazon. Now, when I say wholesale arbitrage, I mean just buying from distributors or wholesalers. Wholesale brand direct is also an umbrella term. So you could be doing normal wholesale arbitrage where all you're doing is buying and reselling, no listing optimization, no PPC, no brand management, but you're still buying directly from the brand. So that would be considered brand direct because it just means you're buying directly from the brand. What I like to do, and there isn't like an official term for this, but people will say like a brand growth partner, Amazon growth partner. That's the term that I like to use when I'm talking to brands. Like, I'm your Amazon growth partner. So I'm not going to be just another reseller who's only buying and reselling. Yes, I'm going to do that, and that's how I make money. But in addition to that, I'm going to provide you these other services free of charge. And in exchange for me providing those services, I'm going to ask you for exclusivity. And so that means I'm going to be the only person selling that brand's products, which obviously means I'm going to get all the buy box. I'm going to get more sales. But again, in return for that, I'm providing the brand additional services.
And just to be clear, because some people will probably pick this up, when you talk about exclusivity, you mean exclusivity on the Amazon marketplace, not like globally, for example?
Well, as of right now, yes, I just mean the Amazon marketplace. But one thing that I want to do in the future is eventually get ownership, either minority or completely, of the brands that I sell. And then I would be exclusive everywhere. So
wow.
we're working towards that. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, fantastic. So I want to dive into all of this, and I want to understand it a lot more detail and go through it in like real step by step. But I think before we kind of go through that, give me like an understanding of like what is the opportunity? And I think the question is, you've talked about, private label, retail arbitrage, online arbitrage. People know that wholesale, for example, but like, and obviously your business has gone through all of that into now what you'd say brand direct and going exclusive. I think the question is why, and what is the opportunity that this can lead to? Does it look like?
Definitely. And I will say one thing that is unique about my experience in the Amazon space is how we started with private label versus like the correct path of like retail arbitrage, which is like the lowest risk, highest reward kind of in terms of financially, and then online arbitrage and then wholesale, then private label. That's normally how people do it. But we started private label, so we have a much different perspective, which is also kind of why brand direct makes a lot of sense for us, because we already know how to build, manage a listing and run PPC. But the reason I mentioned that is like 2017, when we started private label, was kind of the tail end of the private label wave, where you could really just put up any product on Amazon that had good search volume but low competition and get sales. But then as the marketplace matured and they're better brands, you can't just put up any cheap product. Like, you need to have a good product and a good brand in order to stand out on Amazon. And so that's not to say private label doesn't still work today. It obviously does. But in order to launch a product well, you're just going to have to do a lot more product research, optimization, PPC spend to actually launch. And online arbitrage still works too. Retail arbitrage still works too, but it's becoming a little bit more challenging now with a lot of the bigger arbitrage brands that had easier products to flip, a lot of volume. Even though there was a lot of competition, still a lot of money to be made. But it's just getting harder now because you have to find more niche brands, more websites, things like that to be successful in that space. And it's the same thing with wholesale arbitrage too. The reason why I really like brand direct for me personally is kind of marrying some of those things together, but just in terms of where the Amazon marketplace is right now. So there are a couple things that are happening. One is there are a ton of brands that have been on Amazon for a long time, but do not have an optimized presence on Amazon. So some of my favorite brands to work with are the ones that have been on there for many, many years, but you can tell that their listings probably haven't been updated since like 2019, right? So the brand has a strong presence because it's been there for a long time. Customers trust the brand. They probably have their own D2C website. They might even be in physical stores too. But that brand isn't running PPC. They probably have a ton of resellers. Their pricing isn't optimized. Their pictures are grainy, right? So that's a brand where I can come in and say, hey, look, like, you're already doing this on Amazon, but if we make these changes, I can guarantee you that there's going to be growth. So that's one of the things that's happening right now in the marketplace. And two is, if you approach these brands correctly, it really is actually a no-brainer for them. The biggest problem right now is that there's so many people have been reaching out to these brands just as an Amazon seller, just to open a wholesale account, just like, hey, I want to open this wholesale account. They're just burnt out from hearing from Amazon sellers. So probably the most difficult thing about wholesale brand direct, at least when you're first getting started, is going to be overcoming the objection of, we don't want to work with Amazon sellers. But if you're able to overcome that objection and you're talking to the right person, as long as you actually know what you're doing and you can convince them of that, it really is a no-brainer situation for that kind of brand. And that's why I love the opportunity so much, because there's so many brands that fall into that category.
If you're struggling to find brands to scale your Amazon FBA wholesale business, I've put together a list of the top 250 brands that you can access for free. Just check out the link down in the description below. Interesting. And just talk me through, let's say, for example, you're a seller right now. I think most people watching this will probably be doing online arbitrage. They'd probably be doing, let's say, for example, they've really got going. They're doing over 10,000 a month. Why should they consider brand direct? Why should this be hey, this is probably an area that I want to be maybe not doing right now, but learning more about, going towards, what's the advantage? And how big can your business grow? Let me ask that question.
Yes. So in my opinion, there are many, many advantages. One is if you have a brand direct account and you're working directly with the brand as a growth partner, the likelihood that you're going to sell that product for much longer than you've ever sold an online arbitrage product, very, very high. We have some products that we've been selling for well over a year, maybe even 2 years, somewhere in that range, have been profitable the whole time. I don't have to worry about price tanking. I don't have to worry about not winning the buy box. Very rarely do I have to worry about being in stock because I have a direct line with the brand. So that part of managing it is much easier. And then that also means that it's going to stack better. So once you get a good brand relationship and you have those products that are selling consistently, you know that every time you get another product, it's going to just stack on top of that. With online arbitrage, yes, you'll have replens, right? I mean, I did online arbitrage for 2+ years. Some products we sold for the majority of that time, but most of those products we either bought once or bought twice, and then they were no longer good, no longer available, or for whatever reason, we just weren't able to continue selling them. So that's one thing. The life cycle of products is going to be much, much longer. Number two, and this probably is the biggest one, is you're not going to be worried about IP complaints, assuming that the brand knows that you're selling, because you can do brand direct and they don't know that you're selling and then they could IP complaint. But again, the difference between just brand direct versus being an Amazon growth partner, if you're in partnership with the brand, they're not filing an IP complaint against you. So it's also just way, way safer from an account health perspective. Those two things alone just help me sleep so much better at night. And I'll stop with those two. We can talk about more later.
I love it. Okay, so thank you. So let's kind of start from the beginning and let's walk our way through the whole journey. So I think the first question I would probably want to understand is finding brands. What's the process look like? What's the kind of criteria? How do you do that? Do I go call Nike head office and say, can I take your product? What does it look like?
Yeah, so you're not going to get a brand direct account with Nike. Probably not going to get a brand direct account with Dove soap or Colgate toothpaste, right? That's not who we're going for. We're going for small brands. And I'm sure listeners have probably heard of the tool Smart Scout. That is the best tool for brand research. When you're going the brand tab, I'm trying to look at Smart Scout in my head. You go to the brands tab, and then when you apply the filters, there are a couple ones that you're going to want to do. One is revenue size. I always look under 100K. Smaller is better. Usually, because normally smaller revenue size is going to mean a smaller business, which means that you're going to be able to talk to a decision maker, right? If you're going with Nike, you're not going to get the CEO, you're not going to get the VP of marketing, right? You're going to get customer service. But if you're able to find a brand and it's a 2 to 5 person team, the likelihood that you can get to the person who is going to be able to make the decision to partner with you is very, very high. So smaller revenue is better. That's not to say you can't work with bigger brands, but the other thing to consider too, if you want to go exclusive eventually, you need to have the bankroll to be able to carry all of their inventory. So if you call up a brand that's doing $300,000 a month, and you can only spend $20,000 a month, then it's the brand's just too big for me to work with, which is fine. There are plenty of brands that I would love to work with, but I just can't afford to work with. So I like to look for brands that are doing, I would even say under 50K a month in revenue. And then you can also, Smart Scout has a brand score, which essentially shows you how well optimized their listings are. So you want to look for brands that, I forget if it's on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. But and again, you can play around with the filters, but you just don't want to be looking at brands that have a perfect listing. You want to be looking at brands that have room for improvement. I also like to look for brands that have multiple sellers already on the listing, which means that they're arbitrage friendly and not a private label brand, those sort of things.
Okay, cool. So you're using, cool. Carry on.
Yeah. And then once you apply those filters, you can also pick category. I like to look category specific. It just makes it easier to kind of see what the landscape looks like. you make a list of those brands and then go to their websites. If at all possible, get on the phone. Very, very difficult to overcome objection via email. People still open accounts via email, so not saying that it doesn't work, but you're going to have a much higher success rate if you're able to have conversations on the phone.
Cool. So just come back to so using Smart Scout as a tool, is that like the best tool, or is it the only tool, or like is it kind of like a no-brainer? Like why do you use that tool? Let me ask
As far as I know, it's the only tool that gives brand level data on Amazon. Like there's a lot of profit calculators. There's a lot of keyword PPC kind of tools. But in terms of Smart Scout, I don't think Smart Scout has a direct competitor when it comes to brand level data on Amazon. If there is, I just am unaware of it.
Fantastic. And you talked about, obviously, the criteria. You talked about revenue, brand score, multiple sellers. Then you said, obviously, you can filter it by category. Are there any categories that you like, don't like, and like what's the reason behind that?
I don't want to say there are particular categories that I don't like just because there's so many categories I haven't sold in all of them. I like health and household. You have a lot of products that people find, like, and then buy over and over again. Which means you're going to have customers with a higher LTV, which just means lifetime value. So it's like opposed to them coming and only buying the product once, they're going to buy it sometimes for years. That's awesome. But it's also a category that's highly, highly competitive. So it's going to might be harder to open accounts in that sort of category. Another one that's a lot of, has a lot of good opportunity, tools and home improvement. And what I've found in that category is because of, I guess, just the industry there, like a lot of people, that are probably selling in brick and mortar, maybe auto shops or construction workers, they're just not e-commerce minded. So the amount of terrible product listings that have a high amount of sales velocity is just really high in that category. So there's just so much room for improvement with a high baseline. Those are two that I've spent a lot of time looking at. I also like sports and outdoors. Home and kitchen can be tough. A lot of private label, a lot of big brands there. Not saying it can't be done, but from the little research I've done in that category, I've just decided that's not a category I'm going to focus on.
Do you ever look at like clothing, shoes?
Oh,
is that an area?
Boy, I will stay away from clothing, man. Clothing.
Oh, why?
Well, so clothing's great for online arbitrage. I made a lot of money in clothing during online arbitrage, specifically like, the big popular brands, Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, a lot of stuff that you can get on sale and then flip for fair market price and make really good money on. But return rate. I got so tired of high return rates. I like my return rate at like 2% or less. Yeah. So I just don't like dealing with returns.
What's that like a clothing or sneaker return rate? Go on, scare me.
For me, it was 8 to 10%.
Wow.
Yeah.
My God, so it's like 5 times higher return rate, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it was terrible.
It's crazy. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we've got Smart Scout, we've got our list of revenue, we've got a list of criteria, maybe we've chosen some categories, and now we've chosen some brands. Like, is there when you're like, I'm guessing you're getting quite a lot of brands.
Yes.
Do you filter it even more, or do you say, look, cool, there's like 200, 500, we just contact them all? Like, is there a filtering process before you start reaching out?
At the beginning, it's going to be making a list of all of them and just getting through your first 100 contacts as fast as you can. Because you're going to need to have practice having the conversations. And some of it is just kind of developing the sixth sense of just looking at a lot of brands listing, and then you kind of will start to notice patterns. And yeah, it's kind of hard to describe without like actually showing a product listing, if you know what I mean. But what I recommend to beginners is like just get those first 50 to 100 phone calls done as quickly as you can, because you can always follow up, right? A no now doesn't mean a no forever. Even if they tell you that, that's not necessarily true. That person might even get fired, and then you talk to someone else and they don't even remember you. A big part of this is timing too, which, like you mentioned, is big with Brand Direct. One of my favorite stories about timing in terms of opening an account. One of my friends, there was an account that he had been following up with, I want to say for over a year, that he really wanted. And they were just like hard no, hard no, hard no. And then he finally got the account because, do you remember the Inform Act? When you had to like just enter in business information. So I don't know if the brand was selling themselves or if they had resellers. I think they were selling themselves. They were going to stop selling on Amazon because no one at the company wanted to fill out the form for whatever reason. So they were just going to stop Amazon. And then he was like, oh, well, I already did it for my account. I'll just sell for you. And they're like, okay. So you never know what the reason or the timing is. So that's the other thing that's really important. if anyone's studied anything about wholesale, they know you have to follow up. And it's the same thing with brands. One account that I just got that's going to be really, really profitable for us, it was like from the first conversation to like really getting things moving towards exclusivity was like 6 months. That's going to be a big part of the game too. Just follow up and being consistent.
It's interesting. When I used to do recruitment, I remember it was those companies that just would say no, no, no. They're the best ones because once you get in there, they would say no to everyone else. Yes. Yeah. And what was really interesting is I had to follow up for 1.5 years. And eventually the woman was like, okay, you can come down and we'll give you a chance. And I was like, wow. Yeah. And it was amazing. Like, but you've got to just, and she was like, I was like, why did you choose us? She was like, you just kept, you had good talk, you knew what you were talking about, and you were just relentless. You just kept checking up on me. And it's like, well, if you continue doing that when you work for me, then I'm great.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like asking the girl out. If you ask her out once, obviously you weren't really interested, but if you keep doing it, you eventually win her over.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
That was one of the best compliments I got too from a brand. And actually the same one that I just referenced. He was like, man, Cajua, you are relentless. I wish if you would just quit and come work for me. I was like, haha, got him.
Exactly. Yeah, now I'm going to come work with you. I'll be your brand owner. Okay. Exactly. So talk me through, what does the contact process look like? You said, ideally get on the phone. You said obviously relentless following up, but like talk me through step by step. What does that look like in, if I've got this list of 100, now I want to do it. I appreciate the first 100 are going to be horrible. I'm probably going to mess it up, but what should I be doing? What does the process look like?
2 biggest tips. Less is more. That's step 1, which just means calling them. Don't give them a spiel about your life, about your business, about how you're going to sell them the world. They've heard that before. Get the conversation started, open an account. That's it. The more specific you can be as well, also good. So I'm Cajua Robinson with XYZ company. I want to buy X product in Y quantity. Could you send me your pricing, right? So it just shows that you've done your research, that you know what you want. And then if you're talking to a sales rep, they'll probably give you that information and then you go from there. If you try in the first conversation to say, hey, I want to be your Amazon growth partner, I want to be the exclusive seller, I'm going to do listing optimization, they're just going to hang up the phone. So in the initial outreach, less is more. Just get the conversation started because there's no trust built. For a brand, especially if it is a small team like I was talking about before, you're normally dealing with the owner or someone close to the owner. They have a lot invested financially probably and emotionally in the brand. So for them to give someone exclusivity, there needs to be a high degree of trust. And that just takes time to build, which is part of the reason you need to follow up so long. But in the beginning, there's no trust. So if you try and pitch them on those things, even if they think it sounds like a good idea, they're not going to go for it. So you got to kind of start slow and then build that rapport over time. So less is more in the beginning. And then and this kind of goes together with follow-up, is asking good questions. If you are just about me, like I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to do this for you, I want exclusivity, I want this pricing, you're not going to get very far. You need to be genuinely interested in the brand. You need to ask them what their pain points are, what their goals are. And then once you have that established, then you can tailor your pitch to be specifically tailored to solving those pain points and helping them reach their goals.
Okay, interesting. So you talked about it earlier. You said like get on the phone. So this list of 100 I've got, am I literally like go find the number, give them a call, or is that exactly all I'm doing? And then just have that pitch like that, short, concise. Hi, this is Tom. I want to buy this product, this quantity. Can you give me a price list? Is that all I'm doing?
Yep.
Fantastic. And question for you,
or just maybe just to add a little bit to that is just asking, like, because if you do call, the likelihood that you're going to get to the right person right away is probably low. So saying what you want and then asking, are you the right person to talk to about this, or can you forward me to the person who can help me with this?
Fine. Okay. Yep. And one of the big things I know about myself and also other entrepreneurs is how many per day or per hour of these calls should we be doing? Like, what does a good day's work look like in brand direct kind of contacting? Is it like, I've done 5 today, I'm super happy? Or would you be like, no, Tom, you need to work a bit harder?
Yeah. So there are different philosophies on this. Mine is just set a daily goal that you can achieve every day for at least a month.
Okay.
So some people just have that energy and they're just going to go make 25 calls every day and just get to 1,000 brands really quickly. Those people are going to have a lot of success. Most people are not going to do that. So in the beginning, I tell people to start with 3 to 5 calls per day and then just continue to do that until you have the amount of accounts open that you need.
Okay, fine. So a couple of calls a day, just keep going, get the practice,
Yes.
Learn from it. And then you talked about follow-up there. What is defined follow-up and what does that look like?
Yes. So calling them again and again and again and again. I also if the situation is you call them, they don't pick up the phone, send an email immediately after the phone call. So it's like, hey, just called, left you a voice message. And then also just say what you said on the phone about what product you want, what the quantity that you're looking for is. And then they might respond to the email. Then you can, email them back and forth, ask to get on the call later. Or I normally like to give 2 to 4 business days, just depending. Normally, the next business day can be pretty aggressive. Sometimes it's just if they're busy, they'll still get back to you. So I like to give at least 48, 72 hours before making the second follow-up call. And then if I do have a conversation with someone and I can tell that it's not like a super hard no, which a super hard no would be so in health and household, for example, some products you need to have a doctor's license. I'm not a doctor, so I can't sell that. Hard no, move on. Or if they already have their own exclusive seller, then okay, moving on. But other than those, even if it's a no, it's probably can be negotiated, right? So then those are the ones where I'm just going to be like, all right, this is going in my follow-up section. And then if I've had those initial 1 or 2 conversations and I know it's not going to get anywhere quickly, then I'll just reach out maybe once a month, once a quarter, and just continually do that until they break down.
Cool. And when you do those follow-up reach outs, what does that conversation look like?
Sure. So I always like to leave off asking, can I follow up in X amount of time? Very rarely do they say no. And then when I follow up, I just say, hey, this is Cajua with XYZ company. I'm just checking in. Has anything changed with your Amazon strategy? I like to look at their listing and say, hey, this is what's changed about what's going on in Amazon since the last time we talked. Maybe it's now there are more resellers than before. Maybe their pricing is tanked. If they're concerned about MAP, which is minimum advertised pricing, and sellers are doing that, it's like, hey, last time you said that you had a guy who was going to help you, get rid of all unauthorized sellers and get your pricing back up to MAP. He hasn't done that. What's going on? Those sort of things.
So it sounds, and do you follow up with emails just to have that, you're in their inbox as well, after you've had the call and have that record, or is that something you do?
Following up with email is good, especially if it's a person who you've already talked with on the phone. So I'm not against email. I do tons and tons of email. But in terms of building rapport and overcoming objections and, hearing tonality in people's voices, you're going to need to get on the phone. If you're only on, it's a no. I forget who said this, and I'm sure multiple people have said it, but a no via email always sounds like no. A no on the phone does not always sound like no. And so you got to get on the phone so that way you can figure out if it's really a no or not.
Yeah, you can hear it in the kind of tone of voice. You're
exactly.
No, not right now. Sorry. You're oh, when? It didn't sound too certain.
Exactly.
Emails no.
Exactly.
You talked about objections.
Yes.
Tell me some of the common objections that you hear and what are how do you overcome them?
Yeah. So the most common one is just going to be, we don't work with Amazon sellers, or we don't want more Amazon sellers right now. And so everyone always say, how do you overcome objections? There's no magic script that's going to overcome that objection. It's always about, and I literally had a conversation with this about someone earlier today, someone yesterday, and the day before that. Ask questions. You have to figure out why. So for example, if I just called you and you're a brand owner and you said, oh, don't want more Amazon sellers, I'm like, oh, totally get that. If I was in your shoes and my listings looked how yours looked, I wouldn't want more Amazon sellers either. But tell me about your experience with Amazon sellers and why you don't like them. Normally that'll open them up and then they'll go on some rant about why they hate Amazon sellers. And there's tons of reasons that they could have given. And then you're like, oh yeah, Amazon sellers are, those kind of Amazon sellers are terrible. Let me tell you about why I'm different, and then the conversation goes from there.
I'm guessing I'm seeing a lot of similarities with sales training. Those conversations.
It's very much about sales. But the funny thing about doing wholesale the way that we're doing it is, even though it is about sales. We're trying to sell the brand on letting us give them money.
Yeah. It's like, I'm trying to let you say yes to me giving you money.
Yes.
And I remember when wholesale, like not so wholesale, like the resale and the wholesale kind of like, this is like, I've been 8 years in the game now. Like 6 years ago, it was like, you could just call any brand and they would give you say yes, because like, they'd be like, oh, you want to give me money? Sure. But obviously the game's changed now. And now we've got to like convince them why we're going to be valuable, because like you say, they're getting thousands of calls. So you talked about, we don't want to work with Amazon sellers. What are some of the other objections that you hear, like some problems that you see?
Yeah. So again, hard nose would be like if you need a doctor's license, if they already have their own exclusive seller. That one is pretty hard, but not always hard, especially if their current exclusive seller is just doing a really bad job. But that might be something where, again, timing. If they have a 1-year contract, it's like, okay, well, I'll keep following up. And then maybe when that contract's up, you don't want to renew, and then you go with me, right? Another common one is brick and mortar store. And this is one that you get a lot, because this is how brands have figured out how to weed out Amazon sellers, which is really, really smart. So it's like, okay, well, you need to have a brick and mortar store, because if you have a brick and mortar store, then you're probably not an Amazon seller. So what do? We adapt. We partner with brick and mortar stores. And that's how we get the conversation started and get our foot in the door. And the other nice thing about partnering with brick and mortar sellers, it also brick and mortar stores, it opens up another sales channel for you. So now I can sell products online. I can sell them in a store. And I can use that when I approach brands. And it just shows, again, that it's like, okay, you're different than the other Amazon sellers. Like, you have a physical location. Sure, you're doing e-commerce. I'm not hiding the e-commerce. I'm not hiding behind the brick and mortar and never telling them that it's on Amazon. I wouldn't do that. But it's just another way of differentiating yourself from the crowd.
Interesting. No, I like that one. It's like, it's funny, especially like in the, obviously we do a lot of OA and the wholesale, and you see a lot of the distributed wholesalers like, sorry, you can only apply for account if you've got a brick and mortar. And it's a really good way to filter out people and say, it's easy to create a business nowadays to sell online. Like, you need a couple $100 and you're fine. But brick and mortar store shows that you're at a different level, and it's a good way to filter. So completely understand that. You found your list of suppliers. You're starting reaching out a couple a day. You're getting on the calls. You're talking about what you want to buy. You're trying to overcome the objections. How do you move that conversation? And I'm guessing it probably won't be the first conversation. Like, you've probably maybe now bought some product, but now you're going to go back, and now you're like, hey, how do I move it from the I'm buying X quantity and obviously at the price that we've agreed to now I want to start becoming a bit more of a better relationship, and I'm probably not going to be exclusive straight away. It's not going to be cool too, but like, what does that journey look like? Tell me about that.
Yeah, one of my favorite questions to ask is simply, what is your e-commerce strategy? And then if you've already bought once or twice, they'll probably give you some insight on that. And then you can specifically tailor it to like, well, what about Amazon? And then especially if you already have done the research and you're looking at a brand that has multiple resellers, that doesn't have a strategy, that isn't doing advertising, that doesn't have a good listing, then they're going to give you some sort of answer that's like, well, we're kind of, not really sure or whatever. And then that's where you can kind of start to bring in your pitch on what kind of services you can provide. But yeah, always asking questions.
And talk me through, so like, what does that pitch look like? So like, when you're having that conversation with someone like a brand, what are you pitching? How are you pitching it? And what does that, and how do you build credibility as well?
So for me, it's all about matching a service with the pain point. So, and that's why I like to ask the question, because I can see a pain point on Amazon. Like, in my perspective, the biggest pain point this brand might be having is just they have way too many resellers, right? And that just means there's no pricing control. But what the brand might actually be the most worried about is, I just don't like how my pictures look. So if I'm going off and I just come in without asking them a question, I'm just like, we can take care of all the resellers and, get your pricing fixed, and they don't care about that. Well, then that's a super weak pitch. But if they are all about the pictures, then it's like, okay, well, then I'll be like, if we can work out some sort of deal where it's semi-exclusive or exclusive, I'll do that for you for free. In fact, I'll start it right now and I'll get draft pictures ready by tomorrow, right? So it's about asking questions, figuring out what they care about the most, and then matching one or two services to that. Most often in my experience, the biggest pain point has been about unauthorized resellers or too many resellers, which just comes down to helping them get control of the supply chain, figuring out where they're selling, like getting a list of all the resellers so that way they can like match business info. Because sometimes they'll be like, oh my goodness, I thought that guy was a brick and mortar store. You're like, nope, he's just an Amazon seller and he's not selling anywhere else. I can almost guarantee you, right? So asking questions, figuring out what matters to them, and then matching a service to that.
Interesting. And so you're having the conversations, you're understanding the pain points, you're matching like really what they're doing, and you're talking about what you do and how you help, and obviously showing them evidence of that. Talk me through like the negotiation side of, okay, so I like you, I brought a couple of orders now, and you sound like you're going to solve some of the problems which are going to align with our strategy. And now you're kind of talking through, do you go straight into exclusive, or is there kind of like a layer before that? Like, hey, I want to reduce the numbers down. We're going to be that. Like, what does that look like, and how do you have that discussion?
Yeah. So oftentimes, and this is something that I kind of got from Jonah Hodges. So it kind of like just a prove it deal, essentially. So it's like, hey, this is what we're going to do for you. Like, we're going to stay in contact over the next couple months. This is what our goal is, just to like prove to you, that we actually know what we're talking about. So that's kind of how I like to start the negotiation is, let's just look at this like a trial period, right? We're not signing a contract out the gate. Like, I'll kind of start doing these things for you on a handshake deal. And then assuming things go well, then this is where I want it to go. The other thing that you can do is start with just one ASIN. So oftentimes they'll have multiple ASINs, right? There's normally a best seller that all of the resellers want to buy. Everyone wants to get a piece of the pie. The product is doing the most, but it's like, hey, I'll take 1, 2, or 3 of your not so good ASINs. I won't even ask you about the best selling one because that one's already overstocked. I'll just focus on these. And then if I can prove it here, then I'll start to kind of take over the whole brand.
And that process works quite well.
Another one is if they have a bestseller that's on Amazon, but that's the only product that's on Amazon, and they have a second bestseller that also does well on their website but isn't on Amazon, offering to create that listing for them, because then it creates new revenue. So again, you're not just kind of leeching off of what's already there. You're already helping to grow them. So even just doing that proves to them, it's like, hey, I'm interested in like helping you grow and not just taking what's already there.
And talk me through, so like, I like it because you're building trust, and you're basically saying, okay, I bought product from you, fantastic. So you're not, they've done some business with you, very arm's length, but they've done something. And then you're like, cool, I can see an opportunity to help grow the brand. And then they say, okay, I can see that you've helped us with this. Let's give you a bit more exposure. And also the more trust you build, the happier they are. Before you get into kind of like full on, I'm now the exclusive owner or reseller of your product, and I manage the listings. Like, how do you manage, or how does it work when you've got other competition? Like, say, classic one would be you're buying from the brand, they're worried about pricing MAP, you're selling at MAP, and then obviously everyone else is reselling it way under MAP, for example. How do you deal with all this?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that you can deal with it. One, it depends on how much it's selling, how much stock is there. You can just wait for everyone to sell out, right? Especially if those people are buying directly from a brand, or even if they're buying from a distributor, because you can help the brand communicate with the distributor and say, hey, stop selling to these people and make sure you're vetting Amazon sellers. But just waiting for them to sell out, we're literally doing that right now. And the other thing is you could do a buyback, depending on how much stock they have. So that's another thing we've done, where it's like, hey, this seller just had a lot of inventory. They're not respecting MAP. We send them a deal. We say, hey, we'll just buy back your inventory, and did set up that deal through the brand owner, not just us directly to that seller. And then just took their seller. Sure, now we have maybe, 3 or 4 months worth of stock, but it's very profitable. And I know we'll sell through because we'll be the only seller.
Cool. Okay. And so talk me through timeframes.
Yeah.
Like, I want to start today brand direct.
Yep.
And I'm going to get on Smart Scout, and I'm going to go start doing this. Like, how long would it take for me to, first of all, get the first calls, get the first kind of deals, orders placed, and then like now we can start working on the the few listings, for example, to show that we're evidence. And then like how long will it take? So now I am the direct seller of that product. Like, talk me through typical timeframes that you see in this journey.
Yes, it's definitely going to be slower than like an online arbitrage, right? Because online arbitrage, you can find a product today, buy it, have it at your house, and shipped out within the next few business days. The life cycle, or the account opening cycle for brand direct, is definitely going to be longer on average. I will say there are outliers. The fastest that I've gone from initial contact to exclusive was 3 days. And that was because it was a recommendation to me from someone else who knew what I did and knew where the brand was. So it was just like, hey, like you should be in contact with them because they need what you have. And so because it was a recommendation, there's already trust built. So I didn't have to go through the whole rapport and trust building phase. So that's abnormal. I would say for me, and I should get this data written down, but it's from initial contact to exclusive is normally going to be months. From initial contact to getting the first PO placed, if you've just started and you're making those 3 to 5 phone calls a day, I would say about 30 to 60 days, depending on how proficient you are on the phone.
So if I start today, in 2 months' time, I'm going to get a couple of orders placed, and then maybe within 6 to 1 year, I can maybe have the first few brand direct deals on, and they're going to last me could be up to a year, 2 years after that, depending on how it's going on.
Yep. I would say that's realistic if you're not aggressive. If you're aggressive, you can do it way faster. But if you're kind of doing it as like, okay, I'm mainly focusing on arbitrage, but I just kind of want to start building up the brand direct, I would say expect that. But if you're just going to dive into brand direct 100%, like do a lot of research, find really good brands, make more than 5 phone calls a day, do a lot of aggressive follow-up, you can really shorten that time frame.
Interesting. Oh, I absolutely love it. And like you talked about it earlier on, you had some brand, or you got a brand, like you got a product, I think it's been going for a year, 2 years now. How do you maintain those relationships and keep them going?
Yeah.
What does that look like, and what advice do you have?
Yeah. So we send monthly reports of what we're doing on Amazon every month to the brand. So what sales look like, how many units we moved, how much we spend on advertising, what coupon performance looked like. I'll add a few notes to it as well. But my team puts those together, and every month we send the brands a monthly report of what we did on Amazon with their products.
So it's kind of like you want to be seen to be being active and helping them to grow. And Correct. So that's going to help them. And
there's normally something that comes up too. So it's like, I feel like every month I have at least one point of contact with every brand owner, whether it's just a couple emails exchanged, a phone call, a Google Meet. And, every brand's at a different point, right? Like if there's a brand where, we're really trying to build out some new listings, then we're going to be communicating more, because it's like, all right, do you like these pictures? Do you like this copy? Let's hop on a call. Let's talk about this. So sometimes it's like if we're, doing a lot with a brand, I might be talking with the brand owner multiple times a week for a month or two. But then once things are set, then it's probably just, all right, here's the monthly report. Here's a monthly order. And then it's like, all right, things are great. And then it's pretty easy maintenance.
Wow, I love it. And just coming back to like the agreement with the brands, is it like a handshake? Is it a written contract? What does that look like?
Yeah. So like I said in the beginning, kind of a prove it deal, more of a handshake. And then I like to have them sign, and I also sign a contract. Now, to be completely honest, a lawyer didn't draft it up. We're not going and getting it notarized. So it's not something that's like going to really hold up in court. I'm not going to sue them over it. They're probably not going to sue me over it, but it does formalize the agreement. And it's like, hey, this is what I'm agreeing to provide to you. This is what you're agreeing to provide to me. And then this is the duration of the agreement. And then obviously it'll get tailored a little bit depending on the brand and if there's certain things that we discuss. But I do like to get that signed just to formalize it. And then that way, because again, just the act of doing that, right? It's like, all right, I made it, I signed it, I send it to them. They look it over, they sign it. It just helps to formalize.
Okay, cool. I like it. And you've talked about a couple of tools. You talked about Smart Scout today. You've talked about following up on people. I'm guessing there's some kind of CRM. Like, what is your tech stack? Google Sheets. Wow.
Google Sheets. Yep.
Is it just Google Sheets and Smart Scout? Is that all you use to make this happen? And a phone?
I use Helium 10 a lot too. And that's for, the keyword research mainly, because that's really, really important if you're fixing the title, if you're writing the bullet points, the description, the A+ content, the images, the keyword research is very, very important. You can do some of that in Smart Scout, but Helium 10 is just more robust in my opinion when it comes to that. So Smart Scout and Helium 10 would be the 2 biggest research tools that I use. Obviously, you got to have Keepa. If you don't have Keepa, I don't know what you're doing. And then SellerAmp for profit calculations, SellerSnap for repricing, and got to have ChatGPT. If you don't have if you're not using ChatGPT, you're sleeping.
I think I saw the other day you can get AI to make the phone calls for you. So it could be a very different place.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Oh, so you got to build the relationship.
I'm sure it'll do that at some point, but I don't think a lot of these brand owners that are baby boomers are going to like an AI voice calling them for an Amazon account.
Correct. So you talked obviously about the journey. Thank you so much. What's the future of this? So we're on this journey now. We've got some brands. We've probably got one signed. Where does it go? Like, what's the long-term vision behind it?
Yeah. So are you saying in general or for me specifically?
I probably say in general for like a seller, and then also you can bring it back to yourself.
E-commerce is the present, and I also think it's the future. More people are buying online than ever before. Walmart is building out their ecosystem to try to compete with Amazon, which is good because the market needs competition. So that way Amazon doesn't just keep raising their fees forever, which they're going to do anyway. But that's a side conversation. But I think the future, if partnering with brands is what you want to do for the long term, which is what I'm doing, is multi-channel. So we're also working on getting all of our brand partners cross-listed on Walmart. And then I'm also starting to dabble into like UGC marketing, user-generated content marketing for like TikTok and Instagram as well. Wow. So I think the future is not just being the Amazon partner, but also being like the e-commerce multi-channel partner. And if you're able to handle that part for brands, and this is another thing that I found as well, is like, even though e-commerce is growing and it's kind of like, the cool, sexy business model, brick and mortar still dominates. And for a lot of these newer brands, they really, really, really want to get into brick and mortar, but they don't have the bandwidth to focus on getting into brick and mortar and maintaining healthy e-commerce. So if I'm able to be the guy, it's like, hey, I'm going to come in, I'm just going to take over e-commerce for you. You go focus on the other things that you want to focus on. You focus on the brand image, getting out there as the brand owner, talking about the brand story, going on podcasts, doing the marketing, talking to the GNC, the Walmart, the Target, and then I'll just make sure things are running like a well-oiled machine on TikTok and Amazon and Walmart, maybe even your Shopify store. I think being that sort of partner is what a lot of these smaller brands need. And if you're able to grow with them, like some of these brands are going to have really, really big potential.
My reflection on business is do less, but get better at it. And then just get other people to do the other bits that you're not really good at. And the more I play the game of business, the more I see that like that's the way to go. Like stop trying to do everything because you're just not going to be good at anything. And you have a lot of problems basically. So I love it.
Yeah. And so fun. And that's what the beauty of the partnership is too. And that's why I like Brand Direct. And I'm sticking with Brand Direct instead of trying to go back to private label. Because I'm like, okay, I know that I did not enjoy and was not very good at the product research, development, launch phase. But I do know Amazon really, really well. And so I know what to do there. So if I can find people who've already kind of gotten started and then I can just help them level up, that's where I fit in. And so let me find the people who already developed a good brand, make sure it's a good product, and then let me just kind of be the accelerator to help grow them.
Cool. Absolutely love it. And any other kind of like final advice for people who are thinking in this, or maybe anything I haven't asked you that you think is quite useful information for people should know about?
Just get started. You got to start dialing. You have to take action. So much of the learning comes from taking action. Even though like you can consume really good content that is correct, you're just not going to really understand it until you've picked up the phone and had 10, 20, 50, 100 conversations.
I absolutely love it. And I think that's just true in everything. If you want to do anything, especially in entrepreneurship, it's cool. Just got to do it, take action. Absolutely fine. Cajua, I just want to say thank you so much. If anyone wants to get in contact, how can they do it? What's the best way to find out more about you?
Yes. So again, thanks for having me on. Very fun conversation. I have a podcast and YouTube channel too. So normally I'm the one asking the questions, but it's fun to get to share the story. So you can see my handle there at Cajua Robinson. First name is spelled Cajua, last name Robinson. And you can shoot me a DM on X, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I try to get back to all DMs. So
fantastic. If anyone wants to know, have a look in the description down below, and also I'll drop all of those links so you can reach out to Cajua. Cajua, thank you so much. Obviously, amazing information, and I'd love to obviously catch up maybe in a year's time and see how the industry's changed, what new tips and tricks you can share, and obviously know what's going on about the future. But for myself and everyone watching, thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.